All right. Welcome to Stolvin's Forge. It's another cool day. It's not terribly cold. We're just warming up the forge right now. And we're working on our attempt at firesteel. So I still have to thin out the arms of this. I will probably grind off these rough spots. Most likely. And then I'll start wrapping these arms upwards to make a nice little spot. So, last episode, I was marking about where I wanted it. I still got some thin spots to do. It will be a pain in the butt. Smartest thing I could have done, just to let you know, is before I started hammering these edges, would have been to grind it flat on both sides, so there won't be like small little spots. But as I start to shape it up in the grinder, a lot of those should come out. And we'll move on from there. Like I said, it's cold in the shop, so forge is warming up. Other than that, I think it'll make an interesting looking piece, especially with this pattern right here, if it survives everything. Other than that, I'm just going to give a good shot at it. This isn't a one and done with this. This will be a continuous effort to get this going until I can find the right way I like making them versus maybe finding someone who has made a lot of them. So, there's that. Please go ahead and feel free to share that I'm live. Once I start working the shop, you know me, I don't typically try to ignore this for too long. Yeah. I mean, it's warming up. So the forge is warming up. It was really chilly. The initial burst of heat was pretty sad. That's some good coffee. Can't have a good forge day without some. While this all gets ready, I know we're a little early, but I like to start a little early just to maybe touch on some stuff and get that going. Shouldn't need this now that it's in here. So thank all of you for coming. I know there will be more coming before I know it, but I appreciate it. Yeah, all right. Got my Ear Pro in. I'm not really going to turn on any music, mostly because my phone doesn't like doing the things. Let's go ahead and turn on the second burner. Second burner is just going to start heating up a little faster. So this is just for those who don't know or haven't been here in a long time. Gaming. Let's see who's all in the chat. Participants is gaming and yelling at the moment, apparently. So welcome, gaming, Yoda. I saw Quinn. Yeah, there's Quinn. But yeah, thank you for showing up this wonderful Saturday. It's a little chilly down here. We're up there for gaming. We had some people send some stuff to the shop. I mean, most of you know who would have sent it. But we got some Arkansas stones for whenever we start doing some sharpening eventually, which is really nice. It's just what was it? A coarse, medium, and fine stones, which is great for starting off. But other than that, and what do you have that for? Oh, right there. Just give it a little bit more heat. Turn off the second burner. See how we do. Oh, hey, it's Easy Q. I didn't know y'all guys were playing Uno in the chat with those reversals that you got there. But yeah, once we get this nice and warm, we'll see if we can start getting to hammering before too long. This work week's been beating me down. So this upcoming Monday will be the start of my new schedule in earnest. And with that, I might be able to start recording videos again to record throughout, or to release throughout the week as I can get them. But most of it will just be simple, small stuff, short videos. I'll use Saturday to be my stream morning. Hello, bunny. Whew, hot. Yes, thank you, Gmail, for letting me know YouTube said that I was online. But still, these fire starters are just to see if we can possibly get a partnership with a local survival store. And if we can get that, I mean, it'd be nice. But that also means I'll have to do a lot more making whatever they want in my off time than making just whatever. Is everything coming through good? Sound, everything? I'm thinking also next week I'm going to go ahead and chain this anvil down finally. What the? Oh. Freaked me out in my head. Earbuds told me they were powering down, and I thought it was everything else. Everything but them. Welcome, Toya. The newest one here. Cool, cool, cool. So we're just going back and thinning these out to make them into grips. Start stretching it before we know it. Little by little, it'll get there. More or less the motto in the shop. Patience. Oh, man. But other than that, start elongating the handles so we can start twisting them back. I got another piece I got to make where I'll need a drift for, because once I initially put the holes in and start making the drifts, so it could be a dual-sided striker. So one side here can fit in the palm, but at the same time, if this one starts wearing down, flip it around, you still have a striker. Just different styles for different stuff. I got 3 I have to make. Oh, don't have to do anything, but I want to make because they asked me to. But we work on those, see how they turn out. And if that company, or store rather, is happy with them, we might see me doing that more often than not, depending on demand. Alright, repeat this, and we'll start pounding out those divots from the cross peen. When the cultist is white. Hey. Milk. Hey, Killing. Hey, Addie. Just another cold day. Working and working. You know how it goes. So, because both of you just joined, I'm making, or attempting to make, a firesteel. So, the idea is I'll make a striker with someone's flint and steel, and depending on how well it comes out, will depend on whether that company wants to hire me. There's some simpler, easier ways, which is to cut out the arms with a grinder and then take a turning tool and bending the arms. But since I haven't made one or have one on hand, I can't do that. But in time, I'll get it knocked out. So we'll have to do it the whole hard way until I can get it thin enough to put in there and start bending it back. But first things first, I got to get it to where I can make the handles long enough to sit in your hand so you can grip it right. Which means eventually I got to start slimming down this chunkier spot in the center, making that longer as well. Trying to keep it within about 2 inches of 2.5 inches of strike surface. So that way you have plenty of striking surface for your flint. We're slowly but surely getting there. That's the name of the game, patience. Belt I'm using is putting pressure about above the hip joint. Should have worn my other one. That's all right. Shit happens. But it's a beautiful day. I love waking up to seeing some snow. Took a while, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah, I can't help it, gaming. Can't help it. Young body, old pains. For those 3 joining, like I said, next week I get to start a new schedule more readily. And then we get to see if I'll be able to do videos during the week and stream on Saturdays like I have been. Small stuff like sharpening videos and so on. The boring stuff that I don't rather stream because it takes so long. Like the polishing section. It wouldn't be that bad. Best part is I shouldn't have to temper this or even quench it, really. Just normalize it, annealed steel. We'll see how that goes. Welcome, K-Shul. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, bang, bang, bang. Yeah. That's the name of the game. As soon as we can get this anvil chain down, some of the ringing should come out. Be a little bit quieter. So, if you got any questions about projects or the foundationals of blacksmithing, feel free to ask. I'll get to them as I can. Between me sipping my coffee, waiting on steel, and working. What's up, Akam? Oh, me. Oh, Lord Gaming. Hope everyone's having a fantastic morning. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to have my favorite breakfast from Silke's after the stream, if I'm lucky. Deeper in there. Parts where I needed to heat it up. So as I stretch out the grip that will curl back, I need to start focusing on the spot where it's stemming from, because we got a nice little start point where it's thin and then widens out. We're going to continuously choke that out until it becomes more or less an even amount before we start to try to bend them back. That's what the plan is so far. We just got to make it follow through. Slowly but surely. All right, looks like we're ready. Yeah. So, for those of you who are new to this, I always wait until this gets about the same color as the inside of the forge, so that way I know it's ready to be worked. And a good way to start necking this down is to use the cross peen, the back end right here. It makes divots in the steel that will, when struck, smooth itself out and allow the metal to be pushed into a direction that you've put the cross peen into. So those divots do this, but as I hammer, they go like that, so it returns to that normal, I would say natural point, but the natural point of the steel, so it's flat. So every time I do that, it just kind of ekes along. Now, there's different kinds of cross peens for different angles, different types of stretching, I guess. Flattening is a better term. So I know half of you are going to make fun of that, but whatever. Anyway, so the idea is that we're going to take that edge and keep bringing it in until it gets about uniform with itself. Of course, it's all eyeballed. I don't often do measurements, mostly because I got to relearn as I go how to do my own measurements. But it's similar to how I have to do that with knives. So we've already lengthened the steel quite a bit. So all we have to do is turn it around to the side we didn't work, put a few of the cross peen into it, get these divots going. For the most part, I try to space them, but I've seen people put them really close together. I've seen people put them very far apart. I think it depends on your level of skill as well as what you're trying to do. And once we get that to where we need it, because I don't have a turning tool, I'll have to use the horn and start slowly hammering it around the horn till I get that curvature. And that'll be annoying. It's a short piece of metal, so working with the tongs, trying to go around the horn is going to be tedious, but hopefully worthwhile affair. Because once I get the turning tools, it's a simple matter of pushing and pulling, depending on what I'm doing. Push to get the initial curve, turn around, pull it to get the other side, and it should bring it to about where we want it. Should. Now the one with the drift will be different because I'll actually have to use these drift holes in the back here. So there's attachments you can put in these mouse holes. You can't see it on the camera, it's unfortunately. I haven't got a camera set up so you can watch the anvil face itself. But there's tools you can put in there designed to help you do drift work as well as other such. There's a lot of ways to grip the hammer, ways to strike. I found I like the drummer method, as they call it, which is a thumb on the back of the hammer. You kind of flick of the wrist, as it were, no puns or musical intention there. But I seem to have better control with that than a straight grip. I'm going to take a look at that here in a second, after I cleaned it off of its patina. We'll see how that goes. Oh, blah. Sometimes I wish I get breakfast before these, so I might start these closer to lunch, but then I'll be hungry from lunch. I just need to get up earlier. That's all it is. But I didn't want to get up too early because it was going to be like 7, 8 degrees this morning. Exactly, Toya. A lot of. Yeah, well, you know, Quinn, I have to get the kinks out of the metal. I enjoy a good pun every now and again. All right. Now, I've always noticed with tool steel, it was easier to scrape off the scaling than the other types. That one's not far enough up in there with the metal yet. All right, so we've turned a side like that to this. Now we're getting there. We just need to bring it back about here, get it about the same as this, and then start bending it back. So all I'm doing right now is leaving this other side to be worked. We won't bend it until we get both arms ready to be bent. So that way I'm not doing some weird funky stuff with my got tongs. Let's go ahead and get this nice and center and let the forge do its work. Ugh. But yeah. Good shit, good shit. But yeah, once we get it to both ends are about the same, I'll take some quick measurements to make sure I'm within the tolerances I want and what the client wanted. And if it's not, I got plenty of metal to start over with. This is just more or less a dry run for me to make sure I can do it for them. And once I get this set, I'm going to go ahead and take pictures and measurements and send it to the client and show them what I've made. And if they like how it's going or has the aesthetic of that they're looking for, we'll adjust from there. I'm kind of hoping we get it. If we don't, we don't. It's all right. But all things relative, I guess. Trying to get that heat even from where we're about to start working on it. That's always an important thing to know when you're working your steel, is if the heating is even on the piece you're working with. Because if it's not even, you're going to have a harder and harder time. Getting the metal to go where you want, how you want. These tongs aren't the best to be holding this weird shape since it's not a uniformed shape that it would normally accept. You'll see stuff like it rolling. So if you get yourself a set of tongs and you're working on a piece of metal and it starts rolling, just go back and start working on that side of it to see if you can even it out or potentially straighten it up a bit more so that way the bite of your tongs is good, and always make sure you have a good grip on your tong. It helps keep it from rolling around in it, which in turn helps you keep better control over it. I have a bed sheet over the doorway so that way I could get some control for the lighting. But it's done a good job about keeping the breeze out, so it's one of those things. Come on. And one of the most important things I can't stress to you, if you fuck up or you make an accidental mistake, don't worry about it. Just step back, let it cool, think about what you did, how you did it, and then start again. This is one of the more stressful, in some regards, craft I've ever done, but it's also one of the most forgiving. Nothing's ever truly borked. If you have the means to reclaim steel, you'll find it way easier to control your mistakes and help yourself get better from one student to another. So when you're working something like a rasp or a tool that you got and you want to change it to something else, this is just old metal that's worthless to anyone who wants to use it. But if you're going to take like a new tool and turn it to something else, I don't say it's worth it, because the amount of work and what you may turn it into may be worth less than what you bought the metal for. So it comes out to know what piece you're working with. But backtracking to the main point I was trying to make before I went on my tangent, steel like that, like the rasp, you want to put it into a fire and let that burn overnight until the fire burns out, generally. That will take out the temper and pretty much all the work that was put into that tool before it was put onto a shelf. And that'll keep a lot of the stresses down on the metal. So whenever you work it, whether you make it into a knife or another tool, it will take to that shape easier than had you just started on it and just went to town. Like I said, this tong wasn't really designed for the odd shape that this is. But like I said, as you can tell where we've been hitting it, it's starting to neck down about where we got the mark from the soapstone, which is an invaluable tool. Soapstone is really good for whenever you're working in the forge and marking on it. I've seen people use dry erase, permanent marker to mark where they're going to do cuts and stuff. Soapstone can last in the forge. It will rub off eventually from hammering or moving it, but it's a useful tool, and it's relatively inexpensive. Get you there. Funny story. I recently had someone try to sell me a 5-burner knife forge. I was like, that's a sword forge. No, it's for knives. I'm like, sure, okay. But try to sell it to me, and I was like, no. He wanted $3,000 for it, and I said, hell no. A 2-burner is about $300, and that's, well, it's a lot cheaper than that. And it looked pretty jank to begin with. And if you want to know what kind of tools you should use, I recommend that any hammer you get or buy a cross peen or whatever you're buying, if you're going to use it to strike your metal surfaces, I recommend highly that one, you square off the face. Sorry about that. You square off the face a bit. It's too cold to bend. And make it flat. Like this one, I wasn't very good at what I did with it, but it's relatively flat across the surface. Because most hammers, they have a flat spot on top, on the head of it, or the face of the hammerhead. You want to kind of bring that to a level field. It just makes hammering a bit easier on the steel, makes it less prone to rolling. But there's also a hammer that's specifically for stuff like flattening, which is a flatter. That's a smooth surface. Sometimes you'll get a die, like I would grip it with tongs and then hammer on top of that, and that would be the flatter for it. It just depends on what you want to do. Like all the basic tools you'll need is a cross peen hammer, some tongs, a working surface, and time. There's $40 forge plans that you can get to work coal. I've had friends who built their own forges, some less pleasing to the eye, like the one that's back there, and some that were fantastic. One of my favorites was a dragon-shaped one. It was just a regular propane forge, but he had built it so whenever you started it, it would always shoot flame out the mouth, and the rest was coming out like a normal forge would on the inside. It was pretty neat. Cold. My nephew's doing really well, for those who know about that. Got another 3 years before he's going to be in here with me, sweeping floors, fetching me water or beer. He's going to be my apprentice. Mostly so that way his parents can go and do stuff. Basically a glorified babysitter at that point. But also because, well, I don't got no kids of my own yet, and it's always good to practice before you have kids. So if I can teach my nephew, I can teach anyone else. I know he'll be a little rambunctious, so you'll have to bear with me. But that'll be down the road in about 3 years. So it's not that big of a dealio. He'll be 7. But he's on the road to recovery, for those who don't know, from his childhood cancer. He's doing really well. I feel bad for the lad because right now he's going through his meds. The current one he has to be on right now makes him a very emotional little boy. But whatever gets him better is what we want. But he's doing well. He acts like any other young lad. Rambunctious, opinionated, farts on you. He's a good boy. All right. Let's go ahead and start on the other side. Now I've made this into a square, which it will bite, but it's going to be a little awkward, so I'm going to practice the kid. A bit of a good bite here. That might work. A little angled. It's always good to practice with your tongs to see about where you can bite on your piece of metal and hold it really good. You don't want something that's not going to bite well and then you're forced to have like a really wide grip. It's just the finger strength alone is not that strong, so you're going to end up losing the metal. I've had metal fly out of my tongs and hit me, which is not pleasant, let me tell you first and foremost. But yeah. Oh yeah. A little decorum, Rhino. But either way, hopefully we'll have him in the future to be my apprentice and get him hopefully interested in all this. And if he isn't, I'll just give him back to his parents. If that's not his bag, I mean, I'm not going to force the kid to do this. But it would be nice to share something with the boy. All right, let's get to work on this end, shall we? Let's thicken it back out. When you're working steel, it's good to go ahead and flip it over to the other side where you were working and do the exact same amount of hammer strokes that you did on the other side. It keeps it evened up and it won't get away from you as easy. Like you can tell with the back side where I put more hammering on one side than the other. And like I said, that's not that big of a deal. This is a prototype. It's not meant to be pretty. And it's coming along. I mean, it's not that bad of a thing. Only downside is constantly reheating. Can't wait till I get it to the point where I can get back into coke and coal. It gets way hotter, but it's more maintenance, keeping the fire burning with the bellows and refueling it, so on and so on. The best thing about propane is it's just consistency. You turn it on, you light it up, and it's the same as it was the first time as it was the 100th time. You don't have to worry about inconsistent heat, incorrect heat. And you'll get a feel for when it's too cold or if it's way too hot for you to even try to work it with any stability, because you can get it to the point where it becomes like a hot plastic or wax and everything you do is just way exaggerated. So it's always good to practice keeping those things in equal measure of themselves. Ah, my neck. I think the next internal project is making my sign to hang out on the outside of the shop. I haven't decided on what kind of sign to make, wood, steel, whatever. I've had people toss me out saying to fabricate a large anvil and put my raven on it. And that'd be a little costly with all that amount of steel and work that would go into it, especially shaping the raven and then welding it on. But I like practicality over aesthetic. Just always been my kind of thing. Flip. It is what it is. But here we go. Oh, man. Any questions thus far, or what? I mean, it's all fun and games until there's money on the line. Another good tip is keep the work surface clean. It'll keep a lot of the patina off of it. Keep sweeping it off as more junk gets on there from working it. It'll keep the metal cleaner, and working clean metal is always better than working dirty metal. Because if you have really dirty metal, 9 times out of 10, if you put a quench, it'll cause a fracture and it will break. Because it might insulate too much heat and cause stress points. Fire steel is the steel that you use to strike against a piece of stone, like flint, to cause a spark to start a fire. That's all it is. They have stuff now, though. I mean, this is more or less dying out because they have ferrous rods, you know, the kind that you strike with a fucking striker, duh. But it creates spark because it's made for it. It's a different chemical composition than regular steel when you strike with it. Because if I was to put fire steel in here, it would melt inside there with little effort. Once I got to about orange hot, it would become, well, a puddle of goo. Really, really, really hot puddle of goo. And after that, it would be useless. And it would spark like a motherfucker. Minor twist, fix that. But colloquially, having that made to be strikeable against the flint will make that fire steel. Steel that you start fires with. Shit. Okay, okay. Back into the fire we go. Straighten it out. Ambient temperature away from the forge is about 43 degrees. So that's not bad. Feels warmer though. Straighten out the steel. There was a twist in it from where I was hammering it, so it was turning along the side. So I went, put it in the vise, and just corrected that, unbent it a little bit so it's a little bit straighter. If you keep the metal straight, it's generally easy to work with for making the length of it go on. There's other projects I have in mind that will require me to twist it a lot, to actually twist it instead of letting it happen from hammering. There was a Twitter video a couple years ago that I did with my buddy who used to own the Black Rose Forge before he closed that down himself. He did one where we made a pineapple twist, basically where we just chisel in some cuts along a piece of stock steel that's squared, and then we cut it lengthwise in multiple sections on each side, so when we twist it, it all spirals out and looks pretty cool. I mean, not much you really do with them, mind you, but they make little neat little keychains, stuff like that. It's just decorative stuff, really. I do like my steel straight. I do. Way easier to work with. But needless to say, I mean, we're knocking this out. I don't want to procrastinate too long on it and just not do it. The rest of the knives, they can take their time, waiting on pieces to come in for completion anyway, so might as well do one of those on a video. I might do the burn through on stream just for some of y'all to watch. get that live reaction to me nearly burning myself. But that just depends on what I got going on. All right. How we looking? Much better. Can't thin it too much more, so we'll leave that side. Oh, that side will need to be a little there. Uniformity is not what I'm looking for in what this piece will be. It's just getting it ready to be made that way. So we're a bit up that way. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. We're on our way. We're getting there, gang. We're getting there. It's all a matter of time. I will. Now the burn through, whenever you do a burn through, so say this is the wood I'm going to use. To prepare for a burn through, I drill a spot about center, or as the shape of the wood allows. So I put that in a vise with that hole right here on top. I heat the tang of the steel to its forging temps, and then I push it down and in. So it burns a shape into it that is fitted for that tang. You don't have really good luck trying to reuse that with another one if, say, that one fails. But you can, it's just you have to know what to do with it. And when you do, you're burning in and it shoots fire back up, but generally, even if the fire shot up to here and I'm here, it doesn't actually lick the hands. It's just from where you're just forcing the air up. So it's not as dangerous as I like to make it out to be. There we are. Nice and hot. All I'm doing here is ever so slightly preparing it to bend upwards. So from where it sits here, we're just going to start curving it up. And there's plenty that can go wrong and probably will go wrong. But for now, it's about where we want. We have a nice wide striking surface. Some of it's going to have to be ground out for sure. And that's just how that goes. Yeah, not bad for about an hour's worth of work. I'm not making a knife for this, no. This is just a striker, man. Something that's going to sit in the inside of your hand, so about right here or here will be your striking edge for your firesteel. So when you're striking in something to start a fire, that's what I'm making today. But I mean, generally I prefer to stay with knives, but I was approached for this project, so. Knives are the passion, but right now I just got to get that stuff knocked out. Yeah, that's true. But I got it on my to-buy list, so it'll be here before you know it. Then I can look really goofy. All right. So tap that back in. Twisting on me again, are you? So the harder you get, the easier it is to move it. So what I plan to do, because the next stage I need to do is start getting the surfaces clean of all the small little ridges from where it was a file. So that way, whenever I make it meet, it won't have sharp edges for whoever's using it. So for now, this is going to have to cool off so I can work it. And we'll start getting rid of some of the excess. But that will do it for this one on this piece. I'll let that sit, cool down. Ah! My earbuds can make my ears sweaty. I mean, goofier gaming, goofier. All right. Let this start to cool off. Turn it off. Whew. Tank's starting to freeze over from that, so I got a little under half left of propane. I have to refill that before too long. Probably about 2 or 3 more streams. But what we got going on here, let me find some tweezers or something. That'll work. All right, so this is still extremely hot, just so you know. All right. Woo, hello, friend. Let's go ahead and just put this in here, shall we? All right, so I started getting the bends here. You can see the little curvatures towards the bottom of this. So from here, once I get these about cleaned off and the surface is cleaned off, I'll decide which edge is going to be the best for the striking. So once I get there, I'll decide which way to turn these up or down depending on how it's facing at the time. This side's looking pretty all right, but this one also could use some touching up. So once I get rid of all the little burrs from where it was cut into to make it a file, we will go from there to decide on which way to turn it. But that's a good enough surface. It could be a little bit smaller. Realistically, I could squish it a bit more. But that's what you're looking for, is a bit of a beefy surface to make sure you can get good contact with the flint, causing those sparks. For the most part, I think we can get a serviceable piece out of it. And once we get that done, we can work on the next parts of those projects. But this was just an attempt to see if we can get at least about where we want it. Without precision equipment to make it the perfect piece, we'll have to do it by eyeballing it and quick measurements. I mean, he gave me specific construction details, so we'll work from there. This was just to see if I could do it by hand with minimal help, such as a turning tool or overuse of a grinder. But we will have to probably use that to give it a nice surface. For the most part, it's coming along nicely. I'm not having too much trouble getting it to where I want it. But since I'm using an uneven piece of rasp, one side is way thicker than the other. And once I get that leveled out, I'll probably normalize it a few times or annealing it just to see how it goes. And once we get it bent, we'll do that again to normalize it. And that should relax the steel to keep a general uniform. Well, I don't want to get too into it, I guess, because my knowledge is just by what I was taught. So basically relaxing the crystal matrix inside. So once that is relaxed and in a nice, strong position within itself, we can push it forward and see where we go. We'll probably do some test videos on it whenever it's finished to see if it sparks. So I'll have to go out and hunt me down some flint. And we'll see if we can get some fire started with it. And if we do, we know it's success. If it doesn't spark, then we have desperately failed. But I think that'll do it for us today. If you feel like supporting the shop or trying to help us improve the shop, there's links in the description below. If you want to donate, I have a subscribe star. If you want to buy a tool from a store and send it, by all means. I love having tools, obviously, but I also appreciate any help. And if you don't feel like doing any of that, that's fine. Just come back and watch it some more. Make jokes or whatever. I don't mind. But it's been fun, but I gotta go. I'm hungry. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Y'all take it easy now. Oh, yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the little thingy bobber. Whatever other YouTubers say. Bye, everybody. You have a great day.